It is now 6:30 PM, and I would like to call to order the September 5th, 2017 special call to meeting of the Board of Trustees. Let the minutes reflect that we have a quorum with the following members present. Connie Esparza, Steve Mead, Viola Garcia, Rose Avalos, Paul Shanklin, and Dr. Kim Booker. Not present is Ms. Bourgeois. The purpose of this special call meeting is for the subjects listed below to be discussed or considered, or upon which any formal action may be taken upon. A, approval of board resolution regarding employee compensation during hurricane conditions and inclement weather. B, discussion of building property damage inventory resulting from Hurricane Harvey. C, approval of revised school closure date. D, approval of adjustments to district invest calendar. E, approval of lease agreement with Harris County. We will move to item number 4, approval of the board resolution regarding employee compensation during hurricane conditions and inclement weather. And I believe that Kay DeWalt is going to speak to that. And we have copies of that resolution in our folder, board members.
And it has maybe a little bit of an update from what I sent it to him Friday afternoon, so.
Board members, you have the resolution before you. You'll see the whole first page is our rationale for the action of, the purpose is to compensate the employees on 2 levels. One, the first level is to compensate all employees as if they had come to work without having to make up those days. And that will be all employees who are contract and non-contract employees. It would not include temporary workers. So that's the first level. The second level is
Kay,
where...
before you move forward.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So are temporary workers contracted, or just to explain temporary workers?
Those are workers who are not there with us temporarily, like seasonal workers. Substitute teachers is a good example.
Okay, that's a good example.
Those, they're not employees. They just come and work for us when we need them.
All
Okay.
right, that's clear.
All right. So the second part of it is where we had individual employees who were instructed to come to work during the time when the district was closed. So after the decision was made, we're going to close the district, but we still needed employees to deal with the storm, to prepare for the storm, and also to deal with the aftermath. So those employees we're asking to be paid in an amount, as a stipend of, we can call it hurricane pay. As a stipend, it will be equal to the amount of their daily rate of pay.
And an example might be people who overstayed at M.O. Campbell and things like that.
It'll be anyone, it'll be all of the operations people who were called in. It will be the principals or the district level employees who were called in. I'll give you an example. On August 25th, the district was closed, but the superintendent called for district level and principals and teachers to come in and prepare the building for the storm, and from 8 to 12. So on that day, they will get the extra duty pay for that amount of time. And we're asking for it in increments of half days,
Okay, over and above their regular salary.
over and above their regular salary.
Question that I have is that for those, it seemed like the operative word is called in. Those employees that were available, are we going to call those people that came in to work that were there but were not called in volunteers?
What, can you give an example of what you're talking about?
I know at the county, there were people that couldn't get to work, and that there were buildings that were open. And we're doing much the same thing in the county. We're going to pay their regular pay without docking, but there were people that went to work on their own and ended up being volunteers or doing something on behalf of the county, you know, that was a benefit of the county, but they weren't called in, they weren't required to come.
Those
Yeah.
are volunteers.
Yet, you know, they still assisted the district or the county in some way that was very beneficial to the county. We're getting some of that, but again, in this instance, we're only talking about employees that we required to report during that time.
You know, stop and think about all of Dr. Blanson's operations people. You know, I sent y'all pictures of them because you had Herb Harris and you had Patrick Mouton and all those people. They were required to come to work, so they're going to get extra pay. But if somebody just decided to go up and work in their office, and it was not on a day when I asked people to come to work or Dr. Blanson asked them to come to work, then that's volunteer work. And, you know, a bunch of us came up and worked in the shelter Monday or Tuesday, whatever day that was that was volunteer work.
Okay, just clarification.
And
Thank you.
that's a good question.
There's a third part that is new. What I've just described is what we did for the last two events. One was the Tax Day flood, and then the Memorial Day flood. So an added component is, because we're having such an extended period for some people who are still flooded, who were evacuated and have not yet been able to return to their homes, they would have to use their leave if they are unable to report to duty. So we're asking the board to waive your requirements to take local sick leave. Your requirements are that they be sick, or that they have a family member that's sick, or they have a doctor's appointments and so forth. We're asking that you waive that under DEC local so that they would be able to use that leave available to them without having to meet those requirements.
This also assumes they have the leave to use.
Right, they would have to have the leave to use. It does not apply for other types of reasons for using sick leave. It only applies for the Hurricane Harvey and the aftermath. So that would be, that's a third item in the resolution, and that's on page 3, the very last paragraph. So that's new, and there's a limitation on that. It will start tomorrow and end on September 30th.
Okay.
That's actually on page 2 of the handout that we gave them.
Okay.
It's the bottom.
Employees will be notified of this clauses.
I want to just pause for a minute and let the minutes reflect that Ms. Bourgeois has joined the meeting at 6:37.
Can we go to, are we down to 3C yet?
Oh, yes, we passed it, but I did not talk about that.
Yes.
If, what will happen if the board approves this, each department will be asked to provide a list of all the individuals who meet each category. And so, right now, we have a good idea of who those individuals are. But if there is someone that one of the departments or area soups has had decided to instructed them to come to work, then those individuals will be paid accordingly. This is just to cover anyone that we, at this point, do not know, or, because all of us, I think this is the first time we've all been together collectively, aside from earlier today, where we'll know everybody. We just don't want to leave out anybody.
Okay, I think I'd like that clarified a little bit, because it says employees who worked, et cetera, about whom the superintendent subsequently becomes aware. But should we say employees required to work?
We can make that adjustment.
Because it sounds pretty open-ended. You know,
Yeah,
somebody was
somebody's
working,
volunteering, yeah.
back to that.
Okay, good. Okay, good catch.
This may be backing up a little bit. Are we saying that since the day that the hurricane started, all the employees will be paid from that day up to now? Even though they're sitting down at home, they can't be working, because we've changed the school date to the 7th. They're getting paid while they're sitting home now?
Yes, they are.
Okay, they all get
Correct.
paid, okay.
That's correct. Any other questions?
One other question that somebody asked me about, is this affecting, and I think you've already answered this for me, Wanda, but is this changing their pay day? Some have asked me, are they getting paid on the
No.
same day?
No.
They're getting paid, none of the payroll dates were changed,
None will change, okay.
Yeah, and today was payday.
Okay,
which covered a portion of the period that
Yes.
we're talking about right now.
so we paid them today, we're just doing this after the fact?
And prospectively for the days that after August 31st.
They had probably already had that pay.
The payroll cycle had already occurred for the September 5th payroll period, which covers any work performed from the 16th through the 31st. We actually ran that payroll earlier that week before the storm actually hit.
I have a question, and I want to word it a little bit differently, but I think I know how it works. Employees that were required to come to work, but who couldn't get here, how are we treating them?
They're
They-
getting their regular pay. Because that was just the way it was.
I mean, no, I understand.
And you understand that better than a lot of people. You and Miss Connie.
And so the people who, now that we've reported back to duty, if those people aren't able to come to work, then we have opened this small window for them to be able to use the sick leave.
If available.
Okay, so they can use their sick leave for this.
Correct.
Okay, what number is that? Or what alphabet
That's
is
right
that?
here.
And be it further resolved.
Okay.
And they only need to start using sick leave if they're due back tomorrow, because they're covered for the week that we were out and then through today.
And it's for a specific period, starting tomorrow through September 30th.
Are there additional questions? So there are three, so this resolution calls for three actions.
Three types of pay.
Three types of yeah.
Well, actually, two types of pay and then a privilege,
Of the sick leave.
right.
That was the question I was going to ask when I was reading it, was a stipend, it was kind of open-ended, but you've explained that already, it was a regular,
Regular daily rate.
yeah, I did all right.
Well, I think it's good that we're doing this for our employees.
Microphone.
I don't have one. I said, I'm glad that we're doing this for our employees.
Any other thoughts? Questions? It's all clear, and just like someone asked, the official action on this is needed before notifying the employees that this is official. Okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion, do I hear a motion regarding the approval of the board resolution regarding employee compensation during hurricane conditions and inclement weather?
I make a motion that we approve this whole resolution with
Okay, Mr.
with changes mentioned by board members.
A second. There's a script.
Let me see,
Well, but I think it's,
That's okay. I'm just want to be clear, Mr. Mead, there were no changes requested. Oh, one, okay, oh, thank you.
The verbiage, he
Yes,
changed the
okay,
verbiage.
thank you, that is right, okay.
Added that.
Okay, good, thank you. So the motion then is that the board approve the resolution regarding employee compensation during hurricane conditions and inclement weather as read by Ms. DeWalt and modified by Mr. Shanklin, correct? And then it was seconded,
Patricia.
but Ms. Bourgeois? Okay, any discussion? Okay, we'll begin the vote with Dr. Booker.
Booker, yes?
Yes.
Garcia, yes?
Sparta, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to discussion of building property damage inventory resulting from Hurricane Harvey. And in your packet as well, board members, I believe, even though we have probably not read through it, there is is that part of the reference Dr. Blanson? That report is in your packet as well. So we'll ask Dr. Blanson to give that report.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Just like to start from the very beginning, which was the Wednesday prior to the storm. We got a call from the Red Cross asking if we would make MOC available for shelter. And of course, we agreed to that. And by Saturday night, 9 p.m., we got our first guests at MOC. We worked our way up to over 1,200 by Sunday. And at the peak, we were at 1,400 with people in the MOC and across the street at Aldine Education Center. Do want you to know that we fed hot meals 3 times a day because the Red Cross didn't have any food and they couldn't get the food out here. So we raided MacArthur and Aldine Middle and every high school and every middle school that we could get to get food. And so the folks that were there had hot meals, hot dogs, hamburgers, and we did the very best that we could while they were there. They started leaving on Wednesday. They started leaving that weekend. By Wednesday, we had 400 in the building. And by the end of the day, we had transportation had transported 300 of the evacuees down to the NRG center. So not only did we house them, we fed them, we also rescued some from from Carroll Academy, and roughly about 1,500 that we took out of that area in that school parking lot. So we took care of them while they were there, and I just want to give kudos to our folks at MOC. On the next page, this is a report from the construction department. We did get water at Odom. We got all the water out before it damaged the floor and anything. It was only an inch or two there. Nemes High School, we had a roof leak, and it damaged the carpet, so we had to replace that. That carpet was replaced today, in fact. Same thing at MacArthur. We're working on replacing that carpet in the library. At Mendel, which was the campus that sustained the majority of the water damage in the district, received about 4.5 inches of water throughout the entire building. I don't know whether you guys have ever paid attention when water comes into a building that has sheetrock. Really, it's wood, anything that has pores in it, the water will absorb it and go up. And then after a point, when the water gets heavy, it will come back down. So the custodians got all the water out of the classrooms, but then the next day it started coming back down. And so at that point, we had to take the baseboards out, drill holes, because now we got to get this building to breathe, and we need to get some ventilation through in the building. We did the same thing in the library. We didn't take any of the sheetrock out because we didn't want to damage the materials and supplies that were there. We just kept the floor dry and drilled holes into the wall. We have a preliminary estimate. If we repair Mendel, it's about $750,000 if we decided to go that route. You can look at it. It would take about 5 to 6 months from start to finish to do this process, because of where the school is located. We would have to have an architect, engineers, and everyone to go back and help design what need to be done in terms of demolition and restoration. You can see that there is a design phase, there is a City of Houston permit phase, there is a bid and a bid approval phase, repair and restoration phase, and then a cleanup phase. This is assuming that everything goes fine. There's no problems, no hiccups anywhere. You get enough bidders. We don't have any issues with the Corps of Engineers or the City of Houston or Harris County, but we're looking at 6 to 7 months if we decided to do that at Mendel. Moving to new construction, of course, all of the sites were shut down for that week and a half. Today, it was reported to me that we have 80% of our trades back on site. At some point, we're going to have to sit down with those folks and talk to them next week, because they're going to say, well, we've lost a week and a half, 2 weeks. We want more money, and so on and so forth. So we're going to meet with them next week, all of our consultants and engineers and folks that are working with us, and begin to work on a recovery plan. We have to recover those 2 weeks. And so we'll be doing that next week, and we'll talk to the board about that. The next item is buildings and properties. They were all over the place. These are the folks who actually checked our buildings, who went in and reported to maintenance what was leaking, what was broken, where were the water backing up, whether we had power, electricity, whatever the case might be. These were the first people in the building, so they did a fantastic job. And we just chronicle here day by day the things that they did. Moving to the next page is child nutrition. They did a fantastic job. They fed everybody, and I mean everybody, the volunteers, the evacuees, everyone. All of our cafeterias are back in service. We had food delivered this past weekend, so all of the kitchens have been restocked. The majority of the employees said they will be at work Thursday. I do want to share with you that we serve food at MOC, we serve food at Aldine Education Center, Rayford Road, Carroll Elementary this past Saturday, along with along with our concession folks. They found some hot dogs that was on the other side of town. They went and got those and cooked 500 hot dogs for everybody that was out at the I guess it was a J.J. Watt thing. Yeah, I was called a celebration, but it really wasn't a celebration. It was J.J. Watt coming out and helping. We did open some sites to feed the public and our kids also. Rayford Road, and I think you got this from the superintendent. Houston, Bussey, Hamburg, and Worsham. 3 meals a day today, 3 meals tomorrow, starting at 7:30 for breakfast, 11:30 for lunch, and 5:30 at dinner. Yes, sir.
What's the state of our liability insurance? I understand that we had a non-cook person help serving food. I saw pictures of that.
We're covered. We're covered in that area. Yes, I think we're covered.
There were actually several.
There was a lot.
Non-cooked people serving food.
Archie, before you go to the next
Sure.
topic, could you share, just generally speaking, without a lot of detail?
Sure.
So we know we opened Emil Campbell on Friday.
Yes.
And that the district used its own resources for the food and the different things that happened. Is there any, in the contract that was developed ahead of time with Red Cross, is there any compensation expected for any of that food or any of the community provisions that we're making to the community?
Before you answer this, because this is a question that I have as well, we're dealing with some of those same issues. We know that there are provisions from which FEMA reimburses, maybe not the Red Cross, but FEMA reimburses for all of that. And so in answering Dr. Garcia's questions, could you also address what we are doing to be reimbursed for our cost and everything else from FEMA?
Absolutely. We declared MOC, Aldine Education Center, and those 5 campuses disaster centers. So we're going to get reimbursed for that, just like we would get reimbursed for free and reduced lunch at our campuses. So we're going to get that back.
That's USDA, right?
Through USDA.
Okay.
Absolutely. What we're not sure of is the overtime and the supplies and material. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on tissues and paper towels and things that we're not quite sure, but we're going to ask for it. We're going to ask FEMA to reimburse us for it.
We should be able
We're
to
working on a list now.
Yeah, we should be able to get reimbursed for those people that we have required to come to work because of the hurricane.
Yeah.
There are provisions to reimburse for the additional employee costs and that type of thing.
Okay. So we're going to need to get Patricia to work on
I
that.
already have Patricia, Ms. Guidry working with us to
Super.
determine what level of reimbursement we can get from those amounts.
And I've asked all the departments to begin to submit a list of all of the supplies and materials that we've used since the hurricane. Yes. So we're working on it. Yes,
I
ma'am.
heard the announcement on Channel 13 this afternoon about feeding. And it was really, I mean, it came off like it's the community. They're feeding
It is.
parents.
We are.
We are
We're
feeding
feeding,
parents.
everybody.
And we are hoping that FEMA will also reimburse us.
Well, that's USDA.
Yes, that's USDA. FEMA hopefully they'll reimburse us for the supplies and materials, but not the food part.
And that's just like us getting
We bought.
money for kids who qualify for free lunch. And I believe Dana told us that we'll get reimbursed for sure for the kids. We may not get
may not-
reimbursed for the parents.
But we're not going to tell the parents that you can't eat, your kid can. So we may have to eat some of that cost, but it'll be well spent money.
Somebody's got to bring the kids.
Since we're along that line, I think we all know that if you have rising water, it's flood damage. If you have a roof leak, it's wind damage. They come from two different pockets. And I just noticed that we said Nimitz and MacArthur had roof leaks, wind damage. Are we approaching those in the same way? Or we're going to go after our homeowners policy for the wind damage and go after our flood
Yes,
insurance?
we're getting all of that information together for Patricia so that she can file if necessary.
Okay.
There's a deductible, and it's very, very high, but we're going to get it, give all that information to her so she can see what she can do. Yes.
And, not to take it on a political bend, but, I know we're talking about federal government and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, the state of Texas has an $11 billion rainy day fund.
Oh, you heard the judge, right?
I don't know if I heard the judge or not. I just know that.
If this wasn't a rainy day, what is
Yes,
it?
that's exactly what we've all been saying.
Yeah.
If they're not willing to go into the rainy day fund and help it, because really and truly, the things we did for the community, it should not come out of our regular, because they're not funding us to do those kinds of things. So that's something that I feel very strongly about. We should not go in the hole on anything because of what we did to serve the community.
Well, that's why I asked the question about reimbursement. I mean,
Yes.
because we barely have enough money to run our own operations, and our budget is in the deficit.
Yep,
What can we do?
yeah, absolutely.
What can we do?
We met with the state representatives today. Earlier this morning, that's what we were doing, and making the exact same argument to our state representatives and to our senators that serve the precinct 4 area, which happens to be us. And we were in their face, because some of those people are also on their appropriations committee that cut our budgets. And we did the same thing. We're doing exactly the same thing that we're doing now, to the state. So, and asking what we can do is the same thing we do with any politics. You try to influence your elected official to work on your behalf.
Listen, I heard you said we're going through the USDA and FEMA and the insurance, but what about the Red Cross? Are they gonna reimburse us for anything?
They asked us to work up a bill, and we're gonna work up the bill and give it to them, but, they're asking for money. They're not, they're actually having a campaign now to get, to raise money. So I don't suspect we're gonna get any.
They get a lot of money.
It's
I
very
know that-
disappointing.
Yeah, but when people have been asking me who you should give your money to, I've said the Aldine Education Foundation, we got, and actually we've been getting some money, or give it to the J.J. Watt Foundation, because we know that money's going to Houston.
Absolutely.
But
But we are gonna have a meeting with them when everything comes out, because they were not prepared at all. And I was very disappointed.
And they're
the Red
getting ready
Cross.
for another, they're getting ready for another
What they are good at
event.
is asking for money.
Yes, they're good.
But they did bring us cots, which we would not have gotten.
But they were late, right?
Well, no, the cots came early,
They did,
but there was
okay.
no food. If we had not ordered the hot dogs for the stadium, there would have been nothing to feed the people that Saturday night.
Same thing with my church. We got cots, but
Next
no
night.
food, and you can't eat cots.
No, you can't, but it does make people more comfortable,
We slept on the floor
We
about 40
knew,
people.
we knew it was gonna be a center since that summer graduation, that, remember you announced that?
Yes,
So they should have already been on time.
And even that, like Kenneth said, if he'd just known the food wasn't coming, then he would have used Friday and Saturday to get whatever provisions he could have gotten, yeah.
Yeah.
Archie, you may do this already, but I would like to make a suggestion that we use no press wood in our schools anymore, no particle boards. This wicking stuff we're talking about, it's just a shame that we got stuff in those schools that wicks, and I don't even know on the market today if they have a material they do in bathrooms that you can put on the wall that doesn't wick.
It's hard to
We got
find.
these schools that continue to flood. We ought not be fixing with sheetrock. We ought to be putting the stuff they use in the bathroom that water doesn't affect them. Because it's gonna happen again. It's not the last time we're gonna get it. It may not be as big. But no, I'd have no pressed wood, particle board, and I'd have the wood that you put in the bathroom that you
Well,
put
the
towel on.
problem that we have is the sheetrock part, though. That's really the big deal. Now, like in the library at Mendel, almost all of the laminate, this is all, if you take this down, you'll see particle board behind it, under it. Almost everything has some component of it. It's not designed to get wet, and when it gets wet, it's gonna buckle and it's gonna peel. but I understand where you're coming
But
from,
you're
but
only talking about walls.
I'm
We also have cabinets. The
We-
cabinets
That's
almost,
That was one of the big things at
Absolutely.
Mendel was the
well, but
cabinets.
almost always, that's the cost for a cabinet, a wood cabinet, as opposed to the purple.
oh, yeah, it's cost prohibitive, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay,
So I
no,
didn't
no,
mean to
no,
start- are
no
there
problem.
other
So
questions?
continuing
Yeah, okay.
with the report, our technology, did not sustain any, problems, any water damage. We did go down at a few campuses, but we were back up in no time. Athletic, fields are in great shape. Our kids are beginning to scrimmage, and, we don't have any issues with our athletic fields or competition stadiums. Our next page is the transportation. Again, we mentioned earlier that we, in the middle paragraph there, we evacuated 1,500 people from around the Aldine area, not just the Carroll area, but up and down the airline and 525 also. I do want to say that transportation has basically been responsible for managing the donations that have come in. We have 4,200 boxes. 4,200 boxes of clothes and donations that came by way of the Miami Dolphins and by way of, one more, who was it?
The YMCA.
The YMCA also. And so we're housing them in the old itinerant building back near maintenance. And the superintendent is working on a plan on how we're going to distribute that out in a couple of weeks.
3 day of shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have a lot of, we have a lot.
Well, the transportation people have been sorting it. It's been sorted into size and gender.
And gender.
And so our campuses are gonna be working to find out what their community needs are, their kids' needs and their community needs. And then we're gonna have the building open, Wednesday afternoon and Friday afternoon, or like, so that they can go over there and say, I need some extra large shirts, I need some children's things, I need some diapers, I need some formula, and cleaning supplies. And so, so that we're gonna put as much as we can together and then let the schools come pick it up.
Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we'll have some school uniforms over there too, with the uniform drive, so we're excited about that too.
And we have one more shipment of school supplies coming from somewhere, I think in Iowa, in about 3 days. So we'll have that to distribute also.
What's the plan for the excess?
Excess what, clothes?
Well,
There will be.
There will be lots of excess clothes, and we
There'll be
told
lots.
people we don't want any more, and the churches have quit taking them. So, yes,
Get
we
rid-
should donate them to the Red Cross.
well, Goodwill will definitely take them, so, and,
We'll wind up.
The Red Cross, they're always there when no one else is.
right. Okay, and then moving to the maintenance report, maintenance has been extremely busy. They've done at least 200 work orders as of Saturday related to Harvey. So I just want to make sure that we recognize them. If you look at the next page, you'll see a small sample of the things that they've done since the hurricane, things that they worked on. Some of them are major, some of them are minor, but we're up and going. The most impressive part is the next page, where outstanding work orders as it relates to Harvey. We don't have the pool boiler up and going, so in the swimming pool at Aldine Senior High, but that's something that we've ordered a part for, and it's coming from Dallas. But we replaced the carpet. We're replacing the carpet at MacArthur as we speak. Nimitz was done today, and then Mendel. We've not done anything at Mendel other than tear out the carpet in the library and put holes in the walls to air it out. So I think having two outstanding items related to Harvey is a monumental task that these folks have done.
And I think we've realized, I'm sorry, Dr. Glanston, I was just gonna say, I think we've realized that we came out relatively unscathed compared to some of the other communities. And we did have water in a lot of our neighborhoods, and they won't be the ones on TV. But that the water came in and receded and didn't stay around as much. But it's still, we have lots and lots of cleanup in the community that's gonna be happening for a long time. So, anyway, and I just wanna say another time that, Dr. Blanson's team and his leadership and the work that was done last week is truly amazing. And it was Aldine proud the whole time, because they did such a great job. And there was Jill Metcalf driving the bus, on Sunday and Monday, picking up the people at Carroll, and her house was flooded. And, and then there were several others too. And, we've had our Cirillo friend over here, his house flooded, and Sarah's house flooded. And so, and who did I miss? And I know our board members' houses have flooded. And so anyway, people just really stepped up to come and help. So anyway, we were just very pleased.
I do have one other question. We've told Johnson and we've told Francis that there'll be a day for the people to come back to their schools, like a reunion. Will we still offer that for Mendel as well?
Would you start from the beginning?
We've told the people at Johnson Elementary, they have been there through their elementary schools, now they're grown up, okay? They want to go back through their school before we do something with it, and also Francis. And
before the end of the year.
Before we do something with them, before we tear them down or sell them or whatever, they want to be able to have a day like a reunion, a high school reunion, where they can go back and see their schools where they went to school when they were kids. And then I asked, can we do that with Mendel as well?
That would depend on whether it's a health risk or not.
Yeah, we had the environmental people out today to do testing. So, Steve, if everything turns out to be fine, it sure wouldn't bother me. But for right now, we can't make that commitment. We don't want to put someone in an unsafe environment.
And there's actually a couple more things we want to talk about with Mendel, but I sent y'all an email about the general plan for Mendel. But
Dr. Back, have we moved to item number 6 then?
sure, if we can move to that if you want to, but I wanted you to look at the plan before we talk about changing that date. We have a handout on our Mendel plan.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Rodriguez is going to provide the handout.
I just want to be sure that y'all see, because we're not going to be putting children back in there. And so we've come up with a plan.
Let me see that plan.
Saw you on your picture. Sorry, I saw you.
And this plan was really developed by Dr. Rodriguez, Mr. Knipple, and Transportation and various people. So I'll let them go over the plan. I don't know who's going to start.
Sure, I will. So when Mendel was not going to be an option to return kids to, we immediately wanted to take a look at what our other options were. And as stated in the first couple of lines, our main priority was to try to keep the students and staff together. So Mendel's enrollment to date was 337 students, 56 being kindergarten and the rest being grades 1 through 4. As we surveyed the schools and looked at enrollment numbers and capacity, Greens Point was identified. It's our newest building. It was built for 1,000 students. Their current enrollment was 627. So with that, and approximate to Mendel, it's the closest school with that kind of room. We went through a process to determine how can we get kids at Mendel over to Greens Point because they have the room. And it's the newest facility, so there's lots of positives to that. What we also determined was Garcia Liza had capacity for more kids as well, and realizing that the kindergarten kids, and there's 3 classrooms of kindergarten kids, about 56 kids, had just come from Garcia Liza if they went to pre-K, that's the closest school for them. So we could send kindergarten to Garcia Liza, and then grades 1 through 4 to Greens Point. That accomplishes a couple of things. First of all, it keeps all the students together. It keeps all the teachers together. If you look at the top, it says Mendel remains a campus. So even though the students would be going to school at the Greens Point building, they will remain a Mendel campus. So we keep the same campus number for the state. We do PEAMS, it goes under Mendel. Any state report cards, it'll say Mendel. Other options would not allow us to move that number of kids into any one building. So now you're looking at transportation issues with having to provide transportation to more than one campus. Possibly, if you didn't do it, if you did it by grade levels, which might be the easiest thing to do, you might be separating siblings out. So, and when you looked at those options, they didn't seem as appealing in terms of being able to we couldn't keep the kids together or all the teachers together at that point if we used other campuses with some leeway and capacity. So what we're able to do with relocating Mendel at the Greens Point campus, there'll be no enrollment process for the parents. We do that all electronically, both at Garcia Lisa and at Mendel. Transportation will be provided to both campuses. And if we had a parent or parents that had determined, I just don't like this idea, or that's too far, whatever the case may be, then they would be able to go through a regular hardship process, which we have that already in place so we can track, and then we're not overloading any one other campus. They would be able to go through that process. By doing so, they'd need to withdraw from Mendel and then go through the hardship process, and then they would be given a campus that they could enroll at. They would be providing their own transportation at that point in time. Dr. Rodriguez and Ms. Wade worked on classrooms and teachers being able to have classrooms and all of that, so there's plenty of room.
Of the 627 kids that are there now, is any of that 2,000 kids that we're short right now from that number? Otherwise, our enrollment's down. How much is down from Greens Point, what they regularly were, in case they come back again?
Well, so that's a great question, and there's a couple of things. Remember what happened when we opened Greens Point. We never hit a peak enrollment at Greens Point last year. We changed some attendance lines. Some Dunn kids came down, and we don't want to get too far in the weeds, but we never did hit the enrollment capacity. And then we had the floods, the tax day floods, and also Dr. Davis and I drove through. The Greens Point community got hit again. So I don't anticipate that there's going to be any growth with their enrollment. We have a little flexibility because we have a special program at Greens Point that we could move if we needed to and we don't usually see an increase in Mendel's enrollment through the year. It may be 5 or 6 kids, 10, something like that. So I don't anticipate a large enrollment at Greens Point Elementary.
So can the school, Mendel School within the Greens Point School still allows the Mendel administration, support staff, teachers, except for the kindergarten, to remain together, for the principal, assistant principal to do the assessment, to have their faculty meetings, to do everything? They're familiar with the students in the community?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, they have a hall that's been dedicated to them.
There's a couple of hallways.
There's
Couple
multiple
hallways?
but
Yes, okay. So
So as much as possible,
they can meet together.
the sense of Mendel community will be maintained.
Absolutely.
With the exception of the school nurse, we felt that because of the number of vacancies that we have around the district, that it would be in the best interest, of other children that we reassign that nurse to another campus that has a vacancy. She will stay there on campus for a week or two until we settle the children, and she talks to the other nurse about maybe some medical issues the children may have, but after that, we would reassign her to another campus.
But everybody else, grades 1 through 4, all the additional skill specialists, all of those folks
The
will be
librarian,
moving, librarian will be moving to Greens Point. Music teacher, PE teacher.
So just for further clarification, they will be segregated on paper, totally segregated from the other campus.
On paper.
On paper.
Yes.
Totally segregated, so we, like I said, none of our paperwork flows change.
No,
No
in fact,
geographic or tourist.
in fact, we've made provisions for if you dial Mendel's number, It's going to ring at the Greens Point office, but Mendel people will answer Mendel Elementary.
Right.
So
And when we get oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, when we get scores and things like that, it'll be Mendel's scores.
That's what I,
Yes.
even report cards, progress reports going out, it's all
Everything
Mendel.
will say Mendel.
Yes, ma'am.
And whose idea was that, to combine it like that?
Well, it was a combined effort.
Great idea,
I think it makes
great idea.
more logical sense
Wondering whose, that's a good,
Yeah.
good situation.
not to move the kids back during the year when we were already slated to close at the end of the year. That's too much movement, I think, for
Stay there
kids.
to finish up.
I'm wondering if we could do something to help those parents get a feel for the school, because a lot of those in Mendel area don't drive.
Exactly.
Walkers.
And they may not have a way to go see Greens Point. There's something we could do.
Community meeting.
Well, we have a meeting tomorrow scheduled at Escamilla for the Mendel parents, but we certainly can have a meeting for the Mendel parents at Greens Point. And, if Kay's not paying any attention. Okay, I was just gonna pick them up on a bus and take them over there if I needed to. I picked up all those people last Sunday.
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's what
I
I
didn't
wanted
pick 'em
to,
up, but-
I wanted to echo. I wanted to echo that same concern that you had, because we're making the plans for them, but how are the parents, because everybody has a sense of fear out there and apprehension and all of that. And so they need to feel comfortable that their kids are going where the kids are, even though it's further apart, further away. And if they could just see that it's really kind of an improvement for where they would be going if they went back,
Well, we
that,
want 'em
that
see
would probably alleviate any of them dropping out.
If we have to go through a rent the bus process instead of
Yeah, anything.
doing it, I mean, if that,
A foundation might help us.
Okay, maybe so.
I just think it would be well worth our efforts to do that to allow the parents to know where their children are. Because after all, these are little folks. And they're not ready to let go of them, especially during this time.
We can always have an open house for them.
Right, and we could take them over there.
Take them over
and when they
there.
That's
see
a great
Greens
idea.
Point, they're
They'll
gonna be in
say,
awe.
this is okay, this is
Well,
fine.
and when
Well,
they see the neighborhood over there, because I think a lot of people, when they think of Greens Point,
It's very
they
negative.
just think of
It's
the
very
apartment
negative.
complex. Well, there's a lot of nice houses around there, and
course.
they'll see that it's a nice little community, and their parents walking their kids over there too. They're a little more mobile over in Greens Point. People are driving over there more, but still, they'll see their houses all around the school, and they'll like it. I think
the
it's a nice
foundation-
area.
That's something the foundation could consider,
Yes,
not only one time, but maybe,
maybe more than once.
yeah, when they have open house again in the spring, or.
And contrary to what a lot of people think, that center part of Greens Point is not the only part of Greens Point. Greens Point goes all the way over to Veterans Memorial.
Right.
That's true, that's true. Good point.
So I know we're talking about a plan. Has any of this already been executed, or we're just still in the planning mode? So are we gonna have, so that's my next question, are we gonna have enough time to, let the parents know? Because school is starting when, Thursday?
Well, school for Mendel is gonna start Monday. Give the teachers time to get set up, and we've got the meeting scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. And we did send out some general information, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't we send out some general information to Mendel? I know we sent it to the teachers.
To the mail, by mail?
No, not by mail.
So Wanda, there were, describe again the layers. So the meeting with the teachers is,
Tomorrow morning at 8. Now, and the teachers got an email Friday afternoon. And then, and I'm sorry, Abel, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say what you were saying, that they got an email, and they've also got a notification twice now of the community meeting.
Okay.
the teachers did or the parents did?
The parents.
So the layers, go through the layers then. The teachers tomorrow morning.
Teachers tomorrow morning, parents tomorrow afternoon, and then the teachers are gonna go back to their rooms tomorrow after our meeting, and they're going to box up their materials. I'm sorry, Linda, why don't you share this? Because really and truly, you've made the plan.
Yes, so after the teachers leave the meeting tomorrow morning, they're going to go back to campus, and we've already provided all the boxes that they're going to need to pack their things. And they also have their room assignments at Greens Point and at Garcia Lesa, and they're going to label their boxes, and then Dr. Blanson is going to arrange for tomorrow that they pick those things up and take it to them so that when they get there on Thursday to their campus, that they're able to start setting their rooms up together. We are not moving furniture out of Mendel into Greens Point. Greens Point already has new furniture, and Garcia Lesa also has the furniture on their campus. There may be a few little things we might need to change at Garcia Lesa, like the chairs might be a little bigger. But other than that, we'll use the existing furniture that's at Garcia Lesa and at Greens Point, and anything else that they may need that may be got ruined at Mendel, then we're gonna, take care of that.
So who is informing the teachers about what to look for? I mean, the tendency sometimes is to keep this because it only got a little bit of water. But what we do hear in the reports and the warnings are that the water is contaminated and could lead to further problems. I mean, that would be the biggest issue, is that you have children with very sensitive autoimmune problems or things like that, that would then in the future be exposed to something that some teacher or some employee says, well, it's okay, it's only a little, I'll just open it up at home and it'll dry and I'll take it back in, not really understanding and knowing the complexity of the
Ms. Wilkerson, the principal, and her leadership team met today and set parameters about what was going to go and what was not going to go to the campus. For sure, all the library books that they're going to use for their centers, they're going to take all of that. They did a really good job before the flood on that 25th of raising everything up. And that's one of the reasons why we're not taking any furniture, no bookshelves, desk or anything like that.
And that was the purpose of everybody coming in on the 25th, that everyone was supposed to get everything off the floor. And I know that I heard comments about teachers at Mendel working hard to get that done. They pulled all the library books off the bottom 2 or 3 shelves because they didn't want the library books to get wet. And we did that in every library, in every campus, and in every classroom. So I am not anticipating much material damage.
Yeah.
And maybe it fell from the ceiling, but we shouldn't have gotten it wet from the bottom because we moved everything.
I have one more, I guess, question. Is it unreasonable to ask an instructor of the class to make sure that the students that are enrolled in that particular class are all notified as a follow-up? Is that asking too much?
No.
Say I'm the teacher of that particular class, that I
some
would
of
make
the-
sure that all the kids that are enrolled to me, a little phone call, make sure that they know.
And actually,
And I
that's
think
part
that'll
of-
also bring all this,
The
fear
anxiety.
and anxiety down.
And actually, some of the plan for actually all of the campuses, and I'm speaking for elementary, is that the teachers tomorrow, when they report to work, they're going to work in their classrooms, set it all up, and also start calling each of the families to make sure that the children are okay, or if they're reporting back to school.
And
So
where
it's
they need to
already-
go.
It's part of the plan.
Good.
Well, I know the neighborhood around Mendel, the houses were flooded. We know how far around it?
I'm not sure how far it went in.
I know that the picture that was sent to me, and I just don't remember who sent it, they took it from the street and there was water all over the place, so I'm not sure how far it goes back, but
Well, I have an
It was
uncle
all
that
underwater.
lives, I have an uncle that lives on Kincaid, which is like 1 or 2 streets from Laura Copy.
Yeah.
And he had a little over a foot of water in his house. So the closer to Mendel, the higher the water got in the houses.
Well, one of the things that we're asking all of our campuses to do when they return, and they won't be able to do it all Thursday because not everybody will be back, but we're asking every campus to try to get a feel from their students, because they know which neighborhoods flooded and they know where the kids live. But we've asked them, and they did this last year for tax day floods, how many kids do they have who were impacted by the floods? And so we're going to be trying to establish how many families, how many kids, and of course, that's where some of that shopping over in the 4,200 boxes will happen, once we determine what the needs of the community are. So we'll get a feel for how many of the kids in that neighborhood flooded. And I'm sure it's a good bit.
I had people from church Sunday blaming their flooding on the new schools we built on Lauder Road, and you build it up and now you flooded my neighborhood. I told them we didn't build
We
the,
have an exact neighbor of those campuses there.
I watch everything you guys are doing. I know, when I lost power, I want to go get some, you have plenty of light over there.
no,
You have plenty of light.
I would've got the same story from you too.
Heck, I was gonna park my car over there, keep it from going under.
A lot of people I'll tell you what, people parked over at Rayford, and they parked all the way up to the front door. And so if you'd done that, Miss Connie, it would have been perfectly fine, if you could have gotten over there. I'm serious, Miss Connie, a lot of people at Rayford parked over in the,
I couldn't find an entrance.
oh, I see.
Couldn't find an entrance. Trust me, I did look.
okay.
So I was gonna call Yolanda and said, Elio, come on, bring your vehicle, let's go.
That's fine.
But yeah, like at Rayford, we had a local taco truck plugged in for the electricity over there. They kept having to run them off, but anyway. Okay, well, we shared the information about Mendel, and that kind of leads us, I guess, to number
Yes,
6.
So, board members, we're on item 6, which is approval of revised school closure date, and Dr. Bamberg is going to make a recommendation here. So,
Number 6 on the,
agenda.
yeah, back on our agenda, right there. On May 16th, 2017, at that board meeting, the board approved to permanently close Mendel Elementary at the close of the 17-18 school year and relocate the students to the newly converted Escamilla Intermediate. In light of the information shared by Dr. Blanson about the damage to Mendel Elementary and the cost of repairs, also based on the plan that we've shared for the rest of this school year, I'm recommending that Mendel be closed immediately instead of at the end of the school year.
Board members, do I hear a motion regarding the approval of the revised school closure date as recommended by the superintendent, Dr. Bamberg?
I move that the board approve the revised school closure date as recommended by Superintendent Dr. Wanda Bamberg.
I'd like to amend the motion. Given the information that we have from Dr. Bamberg and the way that this is presented, we're closing, I'm not opposed to the closing of Mendel, but are we saying that at the end of the year, they're still moving to Escamilla?
Yes, we are.
Okay, because the way that this is reading right now, it doesn't, we're closing it, but given the information we were just received, your statement doesn't say that at 27, that there's still a plan to move those kids that are segregated by paper to Escamilla at the beginning of the 2017-18 school year.
Okay, so
The first sentence.
the first part of it
No,
mentions that,
yeah,
yeah.
we're
but
going
you-
to relocate, but we're closing now. We're still with the idea of at 20, to move to Escamilla from the schools that they're moving to now.
Okay.
So that's 2 moves for the students, is what
Yes,
I'm
it
saying.
is. And that we're still saying we're gonna move them to Escamilla next year.
Right, and I'm just saying that
We need
in,
to
in,
stay-
in the language, right,
You're
just to
basically
clarify
saying
that.
add that phrase to
Okay,
that.
I recommend that Mendel be closed immediately, instead of the end of the school year, and continue with the reconfiguration process of moving
That'll
into
work for me.
Escamilla in the 18-19.
Parliamentary procedure, we have a motion on the table, and that motion needs to be withdrawn.
Or they can vote on the motion as amended. I'm amending the motion. I am not asking the motion to be, I'm amending the motion. Dr. Rose made a motion, I am amending the motion. We need to vote on the amendment and then vote on the
To
motion.
amend the motion, yeah. You need to vote, it'll be 2 votes. It'll be 2 votes.
Oh, yeah, 2 votes.
2 votes. The first would be to allow the motion to be amended, and then the next vote will be on the motion as
As
amended.
amended.
Board members, we have
Taking
a,
notes over there.
We're not
We
really
have a-
closing Mendel per se as a school, because we're gonna call it Mendel over there.
We're just closing that building.
Okay, we saying building?
Okay, well then, I
Wait, wait,
recommend
wait.
that we close the
wait, wait,
Mendel,
wait, wait,
I'm
wait.
sorry.
He has to do
Okay, there is a motion. Mr. Shanklin made a motion to
I made
To
a motion
amend.
to amend the motion.
amend the motion. Was there a second to that?
I second.
You second the motion. Is there any discussion regarding the amendment? All in favor, we'll begin, Dr. Booker, with your vote on that. The amendment. We're voting on the amendment.
We'll put down their building or something.
I am.
Do that, okay? Yeah.
Franklin, yes.
Avalos, yes?
Garcia, yes? For the amendment. We're voting on the amendment.
We're voting on the amendment, but we are putting in,
Right.
in the fact that
Yes,
we're closing the building, okay?
Yes.
We're putting that in that amendment,
Right.
okay? You okay?
Right.
Okay, Steve, yes.
Yes.
As far as I, yes.
Okay, so then we've approved the amendment, and so now we're back to the original motion
As amended.
as amended. And who made that
We
motion?
want to make.
Ms. Avalos? Still,
Yeah, new motion.
it's a new
You have a
motion?
new motion,
We have a new motion then regarding the amended.
amended motion.
Okay, but do I need to change my
Yes,
recommendation?
you need to change the word.
It was already. He made
Okay.
it.
He made the
He made-
amendment?
he made
Okay.
it.
That
And
takes
then
care of
Steve
it.
asked me to add the word building.
Right.
So that would be
All
we're
in
closing the building and doing a reconfiguration for 1819 with Escamilla. Okay.
Okay.
You have to,
I need to read the
You
same
moved
thing.
the amended motion. Just say that you,
Move the amended motion.
to approve the amended motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, we'll begin with Ms. Esparza.
As far as I, yes.
Bourgeois, yes.
Me, yes.
Garcia, yes.
Avalos, yes.
Shanklin, yes.
Booker, yes.
Okay, so we have approved the amended motion regarding amendment. Okay. All right. So then the next item, board members, on the agenda is the approval of adjustments to District Invest Calendar, and Dr. Chapa, you are reporting on that. Is there anything in our folder?
Yes, it's got it's the very last thing.
Okay, there is a paper clipped in your folder, board members. There is a paper clipped little stack from Dr. Chapa.
So if we can refer to the second page, we are seeking approval of the revised Invest appraisal calendar. And so during the July 18th board meeting, the school assistant superintendents presented the Invest appraisal calendar that was aligned with the requirements of our district developed appraisal system. But as a result of the inclement weather and the closing of the districts from August 25th to September the 6th, we are seeking approval from the board to adjust 3 dates of the calendar. The first being the training window, starting on August 9th and ending on September the 22nd. The earliest day for observations would be September the 25th instead of the 11th. And finally, the last day for final student growth part 2, changing that date from October the 13th to the 27th. And so essentially what we've done is bump those dates back 2 weeks, which would allow both the administrators and the teachers adequate opportunity to prepare for the appraisal evaluations.
Okay, board members, are there any questions of Dr. Chapa? Okay, do I have a motion regarding the approval of adjustments to the District Invest calendar?
So moved.
Okay, okay, that Mr. Mead has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, is there any discussion? We'll begin the vote with Dr. Booker.
Booker, yes.
Shanklin, yes.
Avalos, yes.
Garcia, yes.
Me, yes.
Bourgeois, yes.
As far as I, yes.
Okay, the next item is the approval of lease agreement with Harris County, and that's Dr. Blanson.
We're still working on the details of the lease agreement, but Harris County contacted us about a week ago and asked if they could use 7 acres that we own on the south part of Aldine, east part rather, of Aldine Middle School. If you go down Aldine Meadows, like you go into maintenance where police department is, all the way to the end to your right, we have 7 acres there. We bought that last fall. They want to use it as a refuge or debris center for the hurricane, temporarily, to put stuff there and then come back and collect it and take it away. We told them that we didn't have a problem with that as long as they do a couple of things, do an environmental testing prior to, environmental testing afterwards to the soil, and put up a temporary fence. And we just want to be good neighbors, and so we're going to ask the board to allow us to allow the superintendent to sign the lease once we can get Kate, and then Harris County Attorney to work out the details. But I don't see any problem with it at all. It's something that we need to really assist them in, okay?
And they're actually we're going to contract with one of their contractors, one of their vendors. I think it's DRC.
Correct.
And so I've already reached out to them, and we're going to talk about the insurance and making sure that we don't have any toxic waste or hazardous materials or anything like that. And if they just happen to bring those kinds of materials, they'll be responsible for cleaning it up. So we want to make sure that's in the terms of the lease agreement.
As well as an end date.
I'm sorry.
As well as an end date, right?
Yes, ma'am.
We would expect that it wouldn't be there 5 years from now.
No,
that there would
it
be
is not. It will
No,
be an end
we're
date.
talking about months at the most.
Well, I would suggest, again, this is inside information, what is proposed for that site is going to be for Harris County to drop off some stuff, but it's also being discussed, so you may want to clarify this, that citizens be allowed. You understand what I'm saying?
Then we have no.
Well, I'm saying, this is a point of discussion, something that's come up with several sites that we've talked about. And I raised it up with Commissioner today, that they drop some of the stuff up, and we're talking storm debris, we're not talking trash. However, the site monitor will not turn away anybody that has other stuff. That was the concern that I had today. But there's health and human hazardous waste stuff, right? And so there's a flyer, how you're supposed to separate it. FEMA will supply a site monitor. However, the site monitor is not going to turn anybody away. They will say, citizens go over here, Harris County go over there. Just make sure we clarify that, because there is a plan to move it at some point in time. But we're talking about bureaucracies at this point.
Yeah.
It'll have to be closed access.
You hear what I'm saying? I mean, so in negotiating, just make sure those points are closed.
Talk about that tomorrow, because we have traffic issues, we've got buses going down that street, we've got debris falling off vehicles in the street. It's a whole nother dimension, so we're gonna need some time to work through this. This is not what was presented to me by this guy, Ben, whatever his name is, so.
I don't see how you're gonna separate the debris, I'm telling you, because, I'm affected by it, so I'm seeing it on a daily basis. People are just taking everything out, everything from their garages and everything, and it's just piled. We can't hardly get one car into our street. It is that bad. And so I'm just telling you that people are not going to separate that. And whenever the dump trucks are coming by, I was telling me on the opposite side, they already started, they're just picking up and taking everything, whatever they can. There is no separation, so there has to be sure, have a clause that protects and makes sure that that soil is going to be, because everything, I'm talking everything is being trashed.
But that's what we're talking about, and I'm sure that Mr. Walt will, work in that in negotiations, because everything is called storm debris.
Yes.
Yeah, and it isn't.
And the problem with that is, look at my house, anything that water touched is called storm debris.
Exactly.
Now, did I have paint cans and stuff in my garage? Yeah, but if it got wet, it's storm debris.
Exactly.
Right, so the idea that somebody is really going to separate that stuff is
not gonna happen.
unrealistic. However, you've got some protection with the county
Right.
in doing it. If we allow citizens, and we like self-help, neighbors helping neighbors type of thing. But if we allow the citizens to pile everything up in the back of a truck and say, I'm dropping off storm debris, and they just point them in a direction, you're not going to have the same liability protection as we would if we're only working with the county.
Well, this is the first that we've heard about this, so I sure am glad you're bringing it up.
I am too.
But again, it's just it's kind of what, you know, the stuff that's sitting on the side of the street.
Right.
County trucks and city trucks are coming in,
Just
just
coming
picking
and
it up,
scooping it. Yeah.
dropping it, and going to
There's
drop it off
paint,
someplace.
There's tires, there's everything you can possibly imagine.
All
People
called
with
storm,
breaches.
it's all called
I mean,
debris,
it's
not
all been
trash.
touched.
Well, it will be garbage. It'll be a
So that's,
little bit
you
of
know,
everything.
how they're defining it, trash
You have
versus
independent
debris.
contractors that's picking
we
this
know
stuff
that's
up,
just
that's a
verbiage.
dump for them. Normally they have to pay somewhere, and they're gonna be dumping it. That's a beautiful piece of property. It's like a plateau, and then it has a big downturn about 10 foot that go to the bayou. It's right side of the bayou.
Well, it's the county's detention pond out there, so, yeah. So,
They were advertising.
so I mean, they have a vested interest in it also, but if we can work through this, if we can work through this and get the board, give the superintendent the authority to sign the agreement, Kay and I and the contractor can work it out this week.
Yeah, get those questions
So we
answered.
can do
That's
that.
good.
Today they were advertising
Or just
for
DRC.
anybody with a certain size truck could be hired
Oh,
to pick up
and everybody
garbage.
with the truck will be hired, okay. So Dr. Garcia, if we can
Make sure
change
there's a
that
representative from the
authorize the
contractor.
superintendent
Paint and chemicals, right?
to sign an agreement.
They are bringing that, Steve.
I'm sure
Steve,
you're
if they're scooping it all up, but we're gonna have to go through all that, because we said. they're
assumption
gonna
is
have-
that she would do.
When it's finished,
Okay,
we
board
have to be
members,
able to test the soil, and it
I'm
has to
sorry,
be
Said on the
clean.
record.
on the record.
we're still board members, is there, board members, if there are questions, let's hear the questions one at a time.
Okay, I was just concerned, because I don't know where the property is.
Yes.
And I know that type of stuff bring a stench, and I was just trying to make sure it wasn't.
There are no homes anywhere near it, other than on the other side of 525, but it's isolated.
But our school is.
Okay, are there any other questions? Because there is a recommendation for the lease agreement that would require our action, board members. So is there other?
But actually, haven't we changed this, because there is no lease agreement for them to approve?
Correct.
No,
We're
no,
asking,
no.
yes,
Be able to negotiate and execute the agreement with Harris County's contractor.
So we need to
So
vote.
you're gonna look
Okay, so
into.
why don't we do this? Why don't we do two, before we even get a motion on the floor, can the two of you talk to each other right now and see if we can make the recommendation appropriate to what the motion?
it's about
Instead
giving
of
me the
approval, we can
authority.
just say negotiate a lease. Instead of saying approval, we can say
The
negotiate a
negotiation,
lease.
okay.
Okay, but you're giving me the authority to do it. So, okay.
Yes.
That we're actually asking to move that the board, give the superintendent the authority to negotiate a lease with Harris County.
That's the motion.
Contractor.
Okay, so that,
I gotta say something. So I don't want to see, I know that you can negotiate, but are you gonna negotiate and come back and tell us what you negotiated before we approve it?
Right.
Have to vote on the approval.
Because if you're gonna
What
tell
we're
me-
asking
No,
for,
we were
no.
planning to let them start as soon as possible.
Yeah.
today, the board meeting, the next board meeting, board members, is, what is the date today?
The 19th.
The 19th, today's the 5th, so that would be, I mean, in other words, these are things that the county, that they want to happen.
They want
Now.
to happen. But I,
So what we're saying is we have do we have the confidence in this man and Mr. Walt and the superintendent to take into consideration especially the concern that Mr. Shanklin has brought up, in addition, the concern that they would have for the responsibility they oversee, overseeing Aldine? Do we have the confidence in them to?
I would like to tell you, Archie, that I personally would not like to see any kind of chemicals or paint or stuff there, because I don't care if you check the land or not, that stuff can seep in, I know, and,
There's no way to keep them.
that should be separate from stuff that's caused by the flood. We don't need that kind of stuff on that piece of
Well,
property.
we have 2 weeks before the board meeting. I think the superintendent was gonna say this. I mean, if the board's uncomfortable with that, we can just wait and put it on the agenda then and bring you the agreement and we just tell them, they can't get it until the board's approved it.
I'm okay with it as long as they don't put like paints and chemicals there. And
Realistically,
y'all can
I'm telling
negotiate
you.
that, can't you?
Yes.
well, we can, but I think
there's
what
no
Connie's
guarantee.
telling us,
There's no guarantee.
there's,
I'm telling you what I'm seeing, I'm telling you, that's not realistic. Like Paul is saying, water touched, I mean, you have 2 feet, 3 feet into your garage, how you gonna say, well, I'm not gonna take this? You know, I'm gonna put this over here and this over here. You know, you want to get it out of there yourself. You know, you're exposed to all of this stuff. So so you can just imagine the amount of people that are going to be.
Garages and everything else, is what
So
she's saying.
irregardless of whether the county is the one dumping that there or individuals, whatever the county is picking up is what is on the curbside, is what you're
Exactly.
saying. So there is no guarantee that just because the county is going to
It's
put
gonna
it
be
there instead
different.
of individual people, that those things will
I
not be
will
in
tell
that
you
disposal.
that we, because we do pay for trash pickup separately. They've started back on schedule, and so we put out our trash for the regular trash, you know, household trash, and they take that. They don't mess with the other, they just take their trash. And so, but when the Harris County is gonna come, they're just gonna take
whole
all
thing.
that. And some people dump their regular trash there. It's just like, Jesus, Lord.
My concern is simply this. The county owns a lot of property,
Exactly.
and a lot of this is being planned on county property, which doesn't have, I mean, because they're going to line the pits and they're going to do everything else for long-term. My concern is that if we don't protect ourselves, when this lease is over, we're not going to be able to use the property
Further.
because of going through the environmental testing. If we're not careful, we're going to be shooting ourselves in the long-term foot.
Okay.
And that's my school board point of view.
But you cannot realistically sort after a catastrophe.
No, you can't.
Everything has to be removed.
What I did speak with the person from the county is that technically they are supposed to be leaving behind those materials, and there will be a separate pickup by a different vendor for the other material. Now, that's technically, but we know just based on what Ms. Connie is saying to us tonight, that people don't put it out there separated, so it could be hidden. But
The height of this
Right.
room.
Just scoops it up, yeah.
Ever put it in there, then they take it to dump it. We're not separating, county's not separating it either.
if there's any stuff that shouldn't be on our property, they're gonna have to clean it up.
And if it's leached and gone through the soil and is
They'll have to do,
several feet deep.
Well, all that should be in the contract,
Well, that's what we're saying, we wanted it
because
to be.
people, they're
Then we're
not
talking
concerned.
long-term
Their trash is the
litigation.
last thing they're concerned about at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop.
Board members, do we have a sense now of a little bit of discomfort that we can wait the 2-week period?
I would think so, because again, I think that Dr. Bamberg, Dr. Blanson, and Mr. Walt have a sense of what our concerns are,
Absolutely.
and will negotiate to that point. And if we don't get clarification there, and especially if we plan to use this land at the end of a lease,
We do.
and then we have to go back and do environmental concerns, and it's now unusable for a period of time, we've been harmed.
If I'm not mistaken,
there ha-
Archie told us that's gonna be some sort of a football field out there. for
Yeah, at
sports.
some
high
point,
school.
yes, part of the high school down
Surely
the
wouldn't
road.
want that stuff there for kids.
Absolutely.
If we're concerned about, what we're getting in the water right now,
Absolutely.
that's a little bit less than what this stuff would be.
Okay, so board members, we have a sense, I get a sense that we are going to withdraw this recommendation.
ma'am.
Yes.
That the administration's going to withdraw the recommendation, they're going to continue with the discussion with the group, and then come back later to us with the actual agreement or the terms of the agreement, and then we'll approve it later. Yes.
I'll just say, one of the reasons that I really want to do this is I remember driving by Mendel months and months after they've had water, and the whole neighborhood
was
just
still
covered with debris. And I drove through Carroll, and I know if I drive through where Lauder is, I just am concerned about our community not having it picked up. But these concerns are huge, valid concerns, and we need to be very careful with it, so.
I can also tell you, the county is very aware of the psychological component, as is the city, of picking up the trash. So it's going to get picked up. Where it's going to go is the deal. I mean, because there is a concentrated effort, partnership between the city and the county in picking up the trash.
Right.
As the mayor said, Houston is open for business. It's not going to be open for business if you got trash on the street.
Right.
It's a psychological, so they are going to pick it up.
Right.
Where they're going to put it is the question. It's just like the homeless.
Maybe we can find out in our conversations what other land they're using and that kind of thing,
And the
so.
protections.
Okay, very good, thoughtful discussion. Okay, withdraw. Okay, we move then to item number 9. Is there a need? No need. It does not appear that there is a need to adjourn into executive session. And so, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Ms. Shanklin has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Bourgeois? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 7:50 PM.